December 15th, 1888, does that say? We're at Lydney Town Hall and they've been very, very kind to let us have access to it. It's pretty much remained the same since 1962. So we've been given the opportunity to have a little walk around into the town hall itself. And there you have it. There was a hospital in the First World War, anyway, but it was built a few years before that, was it?
Oh, well before that,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Back in the 1800s it was built.
Yeah.
But it was actually built by the Bledders loan family.
The local lords.
That's it.
Yes,
indeed. And it was a gift from them to the people of Lydney.
How nice of him. When did they start having music and dances and bands here, do you think?
I would imagine from the very first day, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I mean, music hall life was the thing then, wasn't it?
Yeah. It sounds really nerdy, but there's not many speakers around today that can say that they projected the voice of John Lennon. Not a recording of his voice, but his actual voice, and that would have been one of them. And there's three here that I've found. There's one here, and then there's one on the other side of the room, and that would have been the original PA. But one of the reasons perhaps people say, oh, the Beatles didn't sound very good in those days, is because they were playing through things like that, which to me looks like a 1930s or 1940s speaker. Up here, just up there, and along there, all along there, those are the original spotlights that would have been here in the 60s. No motorway, no M50 going into, so this was the only route. So this was quite a busy place back in the day.
Well, it was, apart from the ferry.
Right, okay, it was a ferry.
Back in at Cheps,
right, okay.
Where they had a crossing, which has been made famous by Bob Dylan, I must say. Since
Here's the stage. Original curtain. All the way from Liverpool, the Beatles. God, that's original. And that's what the Beatles would have seen. Obviously, there'd be hopefully more people here. So there's something special about the dance floor, isn't there?
It's sprung loaded.
Yeah, sprung loaded.
Quite novel of his age, isn't it, really? I mean,
yeah.
But yes, and if you are a dancer, you can tell the difference. And as I say,
a ballroom dance floor.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
There's only one. We were one of two. Cheltenham being one, and us being the other. Yes.
Is that Cheltenham Town Hall?
It is Cheltenham Town Hall.
And that's a regular bootleg Beatles venue.
Yes, indeed.
You've got all these vintagey lights. It hasn't changed. It is time warp. You think about all those years and all the acts that would have played on here, and nothing's changed. And the spots, all the same. I think they get used quite regularly still. They've got that sticker pat tested on them, so they must be, used. Not exactly salubrious, and you've got to think 18 months later they could have had any changing room they wanted, I guess. But in Lydney Town Hall, they probably got this one. Well, there's three, but they look kind of similar. There's this one, and you can imagine there's like this. It's like, if they were in here, they would just come out here. Sat on the steps there, and a cheeky cigarette on a hot summer's evening. Yeah, this is the clock that would have told them when to get on stage. Exactly the same, still running.
It's all done on a volunteer basis.
Right.
The only monetary funds that we have is what we raise ourselves.
Right. Okay.
We organise local bands to come in, and with whatever we take behind the bar, it all goes back into the town hall. Everything goes back into the town hall.
Right. You're going upstairs to the balcony.
Oh.
So apparently the bar was up here back then, and there was a sign here: don't put your pint on this bar on this bit here. Presumably, if you're interested in speakers and old PA systems and what they would have been using in those days, just take a look at this. Now I'm going to have to get a chair. Here we go. Look at that Bakelite 3-pin socket there. And it comes to this old speaker. I mean, just look at it. That's what the Beatles singing would have come out of, up here. So that would have been where you handed your coats in the civilized 60s. In some ways, it's meagre profits.
Yes.
I don't mean to sound rude, but it's been its saviour, and it's also been its curse, because I guess if there'd been more money flying around, there would have been a lot more changes taking place. And some of the real lovely, features of this place probably would have been destroyed.
Yes.
But it's also under threat as well, to a certain extent. It's always been hanging under threat, isn't it?
Yes, unfortunately so.
Yeah. That is the original ticket office. I don't think there was probably a queue that night, was there? This is the orchestra room, and again, it's not really changed much. Orchestra, the Beatles could have been in here. I mean, the Joe Loss Orchestra has played here, isn't it?
They have indeed, regularly on a yearly basis.
That's right.
It was the first big band that Dame Vera Lynn had actually sang with.
Dame Vera Lynn.
Joe
Loss, yes.
Glenn Miller.
And Glenn Miller.
And that was probably the last photograph of Glenn Miller taken before we disappeared.
All the venues that Joe Loss had played when he was alive and he was playing. And it seemed to me that they were almost exactly the same sort of venues that the Beatles were playing up north in the northwest.
Yes.
When you come here, you get this sort of sense that it's a crossover period of time. It's never past 1962, so you have this place that it's like the dance floor and the orchestra that comes here. You feel that it's still 1962 without a shadow of a doubt, don't you?
Yes, indeed.
The Silver Fox Cafe, where the Beatles probably stopped before they came to play at Lydney, where they had egg, chips, bread and butter and tea, ×4. Now you used to own the Silver Fox Cafe, didn't you? For a period of time, but not in the 60s.
Not in the 60s. I did own it in the late 90s and early 2000s.
So what was the Silver Fox Cafe like when you had it? Can you just describe the inside of it?
It was just an ordinary roadside cafe with about 4 tables in it when I got it first.
Right, only 4 tables.
Yeah, it was the main route from London to Wales in the 60s before the motorways were built.
Yeah.
And between Gloucester and Chepstow, there were, I believe, 4 roadside cafes.
Yeah.
The better known one of all was the Silver Fox.
So obviously, Richard Burt and Shirley Bassey, both Welsh, they would have been going down that road quite a bit if they wanted to go to their hometowns, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
So 4 tables, you would have noticed if somebody big turned up. I mean, Richard Burton apparently turned up in his white Rolls Royce or something like that, parked to that side. Or
According to the previous owner, Gladys, she assured me that he was a regular, and he usually turned up driving his own white Rolls Royce. So he must have enjoyed being there.
Yeah, there was a story about a table that may have had connection to the Beatles because it had some kind of inscription written on it or some kind of graffiti. It was more graffiti, wasn't it?
That's right. There were initials written on the underside of one of the tables, which I know were there in the 60s.
Yeah.
And the initials were JP, G and R. That's open to conjecture who actually made those those markings. But I did donate that particular table to the town hall.
Yeah, right. It might be still around here somewhere. It might have gone.
It may be either way.
An interesting fact that links this back to the Beatles is the man that booked the Beatles here was a man named Jack Fallon, who ran the JB clubs, which was a sort of network of clubs around the country, I believe. And Jack Fallon was a violin player, and he ended up playing on Don't Pass Me By Ringo Starr, the Beatles on the White Album. And they actually remembered him. They remembered him from back in '62 when he booked them for this gig. So for now, Lydney Town Hall still exists as a venue, and I certainly hope it does do for some more years yet. But at the moment, it's still here.